Hey guys, it's Kay from KS Anonymous, and I am back today with another episode of r/MaliciousCompliance. They wanted a bigger glass, so he gave them a bigger glass. My parents and I were on vacation a few years back and hanging out at the hotel bar. This place was one of those places that was cheap, but everyone who stayed there thought they were better than everyone else. A couple, male and female, walked in talking about how nice and quaint the bar looked. They sat down at the table next to us. You were supposed to order your drinks at the bar, then sit down, but since it was a slow night, the bartender walked over and served them. "Hi, what can I get you?" "What wines do you have tonight?" Bartender reads off the wine list. "Oh, a rose wine would be just perfect." "Make it two." "Sure, that'll be $15. "We're going to open a tab." "Unfortunately, we don't do tabs here. You have to either charge it to your room or pay cash." He throws his room card on the table. "Ugh, fine. Charge it to that." They laugh as the bartender grabs the card and heads back to the bar. The bartender pours their drinks and brings them back over. The first thing they did was hold up the glasses. These are rather small. Do you have any bigger glasses?" "Unfortunately, those are the standard glasses." "Really? We're paying $7.50 a glass, and you're going to get chintzy on us? Surely you have bigger glasses. Come on." Bartender was clearly annoyed at this point. "Okay, I'll go check." He went to the bar and came back out with two glasses that I think were supposed to be for margaritas, but were at least twice the size as the wine glasses. He held them up for them. "How are these?" "Oh, those are perfect." "Yes, thank you." So the bartender puts the bigger glasses on their table, then takes the smaller glasses and dumps them into the bigger glasses. "Is there anything else I can help you with?" They didn't say anything, just sat there dumbfounded. Great. My parents and I start losing it. We tried not to laugh, but we were all a little bit inebriated, I guess. A bartender looked over at us and smiled. My dad gave him an extra $10 tip and said, "Thanks for the laughs. Don't F with the people who serve you your drinks." LOL. Oh my god, that's fantastic. Like, what was the bartender supposed to do? Like, honestly, like, "Oh, just for you, I'll give you more alcohol in a bigger glass for the same price"? Like, that's not going to happen. Like, I don't know what planet you're from, but I used to work in a restaurant that served alcohol, and, you know, the amount they poured is the amount they poured. You paid that amount for that amount. That's just how it is. It's not up for, like, bargaining. Boss breaks his own policy, and he pays the price. "Hey all, glad to be here. A bit of background is necessary to sweeten the compliance. I work in the hospitality industry in a small town fed by tourists. This sadly leaves issues for businesses trying to find reliable employees. To try and incentivize those people to find work in town, every business is raising its wages to keep people who actually do their job. Even the Golden Arch burger chain starts at $9 an hour. So when I got hired here, I went through all the paperwork, signed all the documents, reviewed all the policies of a business, trying to act far more professional than it actually was. I was given policy booklets, signed that I read them, and set on my way through training. All is well for a while until the HR staff was cut. Now, as it goes in this particular business, any responsibility that could be taken on by the general manager is given to the general manager. He runs housekeeping, maintenance, grounds work, scheduling, dining, waitstaff, hiring, and firing. If you can think of an area behind the scenes, he runs it. He is also my direct boss. So I'm a good noodle. I work the night shift, solo. I actually show up on days I'm scheduled. I show up on time. I do my job even. I have received nothing but positive reviews from my boss and his boss. But we are not here to celebrate these achievements. We are here to celebrate what happened when I told him no. In the summer of last year, I was out of town picking up the girlfriend from the airport after she had a wonderful trip to Belize. We had a good weekend doing the things couples like to do, when right after eating my favorite pizza, I felt my stomach rejecting the food I had eaten. The next dozen hours were brutal. I emptied more out of me than I thought my body could hold. Obviously, I was sick. I could barely pack my bags the next morning, let alone actually move them to the car. It's still bright and early, not long past dawn, when I realize I'm gonna need a day to recover. So I contact my boss. I lay it out for him, and for the first time in over a year and a half, I let him know that my shift that night needs to be covered. The policy book I had read like a good employee told me that calling in sick is okay. Calling in sick for one day doesn't require a note, only the second and consecutive days would. I wouldn't have to go to a doctor for a note because it's only one day, so I can rest and come back in good as new. But I wouldn't be posting here if I got off work that easy, would I? He told me I'd either have to work or I'd have to get a doctor's note. After 18 months or more, never calling in sick, covering every shift I was asked to, he picks now to treat me like a child. Alright, may as well. So I go to one of those urgent care clinics. Nurse gives me a 2-minute consultation, sends me out with prescription strength anti-nausea meds, and 3 copies of a doctor's note, because you're dang right I'm keeping my own copy. I read the note and it states, OP is sick and cannot perform job duties for 5 days. Signed, Doctor. Huh. Why not? I shoot him a picture of the note and radio silence. Now this man works 9 to 5. He does not work nights. I have another coworker who does my job on my days off, so I expect him to have been called in that night. After the radio silence, and since I was still up that night anyway, I prepared my 2 weeks notice just in case they're going to try and make me work anyway. I go into work with a copy of the doctor's note and my notice to meet people at the shift change. To my surprise, I saw my boss and he looked like crap. He looks at me confused as to why I'm here. Before he spoke, I handed him the note, not my notice yet, and said, "Glad you're here, and hi, receptionist. Boss, here's a copy of my doctor's note. Figured I'd drop this off in person since you didn't reply to me in the last 8 hours or so. Can I go home and rest now?" "I didn't believe you were actually sick. Guess I'll see you next week." "Hope you feel better." And with that, I left. The next several days were spent recovering, sleeping an ungodly amount. I am really glad I listened to the doc. The aftermath of this whole event isn't very exciting, but it was satisfying. The next Tuesday, a week after the incident, I was pulled into the office. I was asked why I requested so many days from the doc, how it hurt him to have to fill all those nights, etc. I gave him the honest reply. Doc didn't ask how long I needed. I just asked for a doctor's note and I was handed that. I still have a couple copies if you lost one. He started to protest, saying I should have corrected the doctor, but I stopped him. "Get a copy of the policy book, would ya?" He did. Turned to the attendance policy and read out the portion about sick days and doctor's notes. Oh. Yep, so if you keep pestering me about this, I'm going to go to the owner, his boss, and ask to be compensated for the cost of that clinic visit and ask that you be reprimanded for not following your own policies. Or you can let me do my job and not treat me like a child going forward. That spells the end of that conversation, and I wasn't bothered again. Still gave my 2 weeks soon after, cause screw that guy. When I worked in the restaurant industry, my managers knew I did not call off for just any reason. My coworkers did it all the time. They didn't feel like coming in, they wanted to go to a party, whatever it was, they would call in all the time. But my managers knew if I called in, like, it was really an issue. So like, to be in the, you know, that kind of person and knowing like I've never called in, I've always covered shifts, and you treat me like I'm lying the one time I need a sick day, like, he deserved it. And you can tell like the way that they were talking to each other. He was, you know, this person was definitely they already had their foot out the door. They were done. They lost respect, but I'm glad it all worked out in that particular situation. So not that long or interesting, but definitely funny enough to post here. I work at an elite school, and I mean elite, to the level of being the place many actors, politicians, and business people decided to put their children. It costs at least $40,000 US a year. With many resources like a makerspace, interactive boards, an iPad by children, and some of the best teachers in the city. I'm an assistant to one of the reference head teachers in lower school, so I saw this happen very closely. My school doesn't have a teacher's lounge, and usually the teachers would only interact during the 15-minute break or during lunch at the teacher's cafeteria. Since I started there, things were like this, and no one had an issue with it until last week, when we received a message from HR that made everyone extremely angry. Only the specialist teachers and administrative employees are allowed to stay at the teacher's cafeteria during the morning break. Assistants and class teachers are only to have their snack with their students and can grab their coffee in the break room from the janitorial staff. So, that means that out of nowhere, we not only lose one more space where we can rest from the classroom madness, but also we have to basically occupy a space that isn't ours. Janitorial staff also doesn't have a lot of space to rest, so it would suck for everyone just to have coffee? Their justification was that since the teacher's staff doubled in size since last year, we needed to stop occupying so much of the cafeteria because it was getting too busy and people were taking too long on their breaks because of that. As far as people knew, nobody made that complaint and it was taken out of HR's rear. People were visibly angry, but nobody talked about anything until... That's when the most amazing, silent, malicious compliance happened for the entire teaching staff. We just grabbed our coffee and sat on the corridor in front of the teacher's cafeteria. Now imagine, just imagine, about 35 to 40 teachers sitting on the floor, everyone with coffee, bread and butter, having their break like nothing happened. People would just stop by, see what was happening, and join in. Eventually, we slowly would just start again going inside the teacher's cafeteria and ignoring the HR's orders, what made them go back on what they said and allowing everyone to use the cafeteria normally. But the most impressive thing is that no one talked to each other. We just started doing the malicious compliance together like we already knew how to deal with this. So, I'm not sure if English is the first language here. So there were some sentences that didn't quite make sense, and I'm thinking what they're saying is like HR decided to retract their statement that they pulled out of thin air after there were a bunch of teachers sitting in the hallway or whatever in front of the break area. That's ridiculous, and it's an elite school. Like, I don't understand why an elite school wouldn't bother to care for their teachers more and their teacher assistants and such. That's so ridiculous. Happened 20 years ago. So, I have a cottage on an island in an extremely long and narrow bay. When the winds blow strongly from the east or the west, the waves can get pretty big and it can be a rough ride. Making the crossing one stormy and rainy day in a 16-foot tinny with a 200 HP on the back, and my girlfriend at the time, now my wife. I take the waves at an angle which makes the ride a little longer, but a lot drier, especially for the person at the front. My girlfriend is pointing towards the cottage, which it appears we are not heading towards. I yell to her that the waves are too big and I need to take them at an angle. She doesn't understand and yells to me to just steer towards the cottage because it is raining and she's getting soaking wet while pointing to our destination emphatically. So I turn the boat towards where we need to go, and a huge wave hits the bow, drenching her. Her screams are muffled out when a second wave hits her. I then correct my course and eventually get to the dock where she is hopping mad and wet. Look at me! I'm soaked! You did that on purpose! You told me to steer that way, so I did. At least you didn't hold it against you for too long since you guys are married now. That's cute. Anyway, that last post is going to wrap up today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and drop a like and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Really quickly, I would like to thank my patrons. Up on the screen, you should see my face palmers. and my crazy case. Thank you all so much for supporting me in that way. If you're interested in becoming a patron, checking out the original posts that we went over today, or sending me an email for possible inclusion in a future video, all of that information is in the description box, so be sure to check that out. And I'll talk to you in my next video. Bye!